What is up, Pistons fans? I want to have a little fun with this one. I want to look at our current roster and I want to talk about what the Pistons' 5 best trade assets are going into this franchise defining pivotal offseason. So, I actually read an article that was almost identical to this by James Edwards in The Athletic. If you subscribe to The Athletic, go do that. He's fantastic beat writer. He's a fantastic beat writer for the Pistons. And I absolutely enjoy reading his stuff. He always has an interesting take. So go check that out. Again, this is not sponsored by The Athletic, but go check that out. And I want to talk about what my 5 best trade assets are for the Pistons. And I want to just get out of the way right now. Cade Cunningham is not a trade asset. There are like 2 or 3 players in the league that I would trade Cade Cunningham for right now. I view him as that good. And that's not me being a slappy. That's just understanding he's young. He was the #1 pick in the draft. He showed us at the back end of last year how good he could be. And most of the other guys that would be on this list, the KDs of the world, they almost have aged themselves out at this point. So the Kawhis, like all that kind of stuff, they've almost aged themselves out. So Cade is not going to be one of my best assets. And I'm going to start from 5 down to 1. So you're going to have to hang in on this video, or at least fast forward if you want to get to what our 2 best trade assets are. So our number 5 trade asset is Killian Hayes. I'm not going to spend a ton of time here. I think he's still a decent trade asset because he's young. He showed signs of improvement last year. He is a good playmaking guard that is a just menace on the defensive end. So that would be enough to keep him on a lot of NBA teams or have them want to take a flyer on him, especially as an early lottery pick. It's a guy that I think has a high upside, but that's also why the Pistons should keep him, because he has a high upside and he's on a young team. A team that would be looking for Killian would be a team that's in the exact same position the Pistons are in. They want to compete in a year or two, but they have time to develop the players. We're getting closer to that window of compete now. So we need to see some improvement out of Killian. My number 4 best trade asset is another guy that I don't want to trade, and that is Isaiah Stewart. And the reason I don't want to trade Isaiah Stewart is because I think he fits in any role. If he continues to shoot at a higher 3-point clip, like we've seen at the end of his rookie year and at the end of his second year, just start shooting. All right. Start the season shooting, Isaiah. So, and I know that was a coach's decision, but if we see him shooting at a 35% clip from 3, he can be a solid starting center in this league, or even a stretch 4 at times with his defensive switchability. He also is a fantastic big off the bench in a rotation. He can play the 4, he can play the 5, and especially the 5, but he can protect the paint well enough. He switches unbelievably well onto guards. So if he can have that offensive game where he's shooting the 3, you're looking at a guy that could be just a key part of a contending team for years to come, but also why he is a pretty good person to trade. Just at 21 years old, I don't see the Pistons. I don't see a world where they move on from him unless it's to get a guy like DeAndre Ayton and they need to give something back in a sign and trade or something like that. All right, number 3 is Saddiq Bey. I think we all knew this was coming. He's a little bit older than Isaiah. He's 23 years old. But I think people also see a higher upside in Saddiq. He's almost the same size. He's a big dude, a little more mobile, good enough defensively to be a 3-and-D guy. But last year, he showed ability to be so improved that I don't think we saw coming. I think when he was drafted, I want to say around 19, I might be wrong on that, people saw him as a 3-and-D player and didn't know what that would look like because he's got kind of a wonky jump shot, but it goes in. And while he was streaky and he's starting to prove that he is a streaky scorer, he can do some things. Now, he does have a 51-point game to his name against the Orlando Magic. I don't put as much stock in that. In fact, that's kind of become the thing where everybody says, Saddiq Bey, good trade candidate, good player, ceiling's really high. He scored 51 in a game. He scored 51 against Orlando. That week or two, Orlando gave up 50 to every other team they played. Like, it wasn't like it was 51. It was like a 51 in a pickup game or in a G League game almost with that. So I'm not buying it, but I also did see him throw up, I think, like 30 by halftime against Oklahoma City. But again, it was all G League players that were playing in that game. So Saddiq has shown the ability to improve, and he is a guy that works hard. And I don't want that to go unnoticed or underrated. I think he will continually improve, which is why teams like him, because he's good now, but he also is always looking to improve. I just think the Pistons are a better place for him to improve because he's going to have more opportunity. All right. The second best trade asset for the Detroit Pistons is Jeremy Grant. And you're probably wondering, I thought you said Cade wasn't here. Who's number one? I'm going to tell you in a minute. So Jeremy Grant is just a more polished version of Sadiq Bey. Actually, that's not fair. He's better, much better defensively than Sadiq Bey. He is a guy who can guard an elite wing from the other team, and this is where he makes his money. He is truly better shot selection away from being a number two player on a contending team. He really is. And I don't think Jeremy Grant is as bad as we think. And we started seeing him in that role last year where he started realizing, all right, Cade, you're the dude. I'm going to be the backup dude. His shot selection got better, and with that, his percentages skyrocketed. So I think the Pistons have to seriously consider keeping this guy around. But if they do trade him, don't settle for something small. I'm talking about like, hey, Portland, we want that number 8 pick. That's the kind of thing that you need to get back for Jeremy Grant. And so I think I look at Jeremy Grant, but he is a good trade piece. He's not worth as much as he was a year ago at this time, but he is absolutely still worth a good amount. So what's our number one? What's our number one in value? And this was close between this and Grant. And of course, it all depends on where it falls. It's our 2022 first round pick. Would you, as Pistons fans, seeing how well Troy Weaver has drafted, be willing to part with this pick for proven talent now? Do you think Cade Cunningham is good enough to lead a team where if you get elite talent coming in, it can happen? And I'm talking about something like, hey, the Phoenix Suns, they're going to send us DeAndre Ayton in a sign-in trade, but we're going to have to be willing to part ways with that pick. Is that something you're willing to do, Pistons fans? I don't know, but I think that this is our highest value, especially if this becomes top 3. But again, if it becomes top 3, I highly doubt we move it. I just don't think we do. So I think Weaver has some guys that he likes in this draft, and he's going to stick with it. So there you go. Those are the 5 best Pistons trade assets. And I think I want to ask you to leave some comments below. If you're still watching, we're over 7 minutes here. If you're still watching, leave a comment below, hit the subscribe button, but tell us, am I right? Do you disagree with my order of trade assets? Is there someone that I completely left off the list? And it better not be Hamidou Diallo. But anyways, is there someone I left off the list? Or would you be more willing to trade Cade than I would? I think he's untouchable. I really do. And so here's one thing I want to make sure we're not thinking we're doing. I don't want you to think I want to trade all the players on the team. I don't. I think it's just kind of fun to see who would be a good trade asset because Troy Weaver has proven that he is willing to wheel and deal all over the place. And it doesn't mean it doesn't mean that people aren't safe, but it also does mean nobody's safe. Like he's a guy that's been willing to completely turn over the roster in the first year that he was here. Now he's starting to get his guys, and I think he wants to keep them around. But what does it look like? If he's willing, if he is able to get a player that he believes helps him compete now, you better believe he is going to trade away something, even a valuable asset. So let me know what you think in the comments below, and I'll see you on the next one.